Thank you for joining me. What I wanted to do on a regular basis is just sit down and talk to you guys. Ordinarily, I guess I would, maybe start with some announcement or something like that, and just take whatever questions you got. I don't have any real announcement except we're going to start a couple things in the coming week. February 2nd on Saturday is my first Saturday at City Hall, where I'm just going to be in the lobby, basically open to anybody who wants to walk in and talk. And I guess we'll have some coffee, or we haven't even figured that out yet. But basically, just say hello to people, whoever wants to talk to the mayor. In a few days after that, we said February 1st, but the mayor that we would open our Tijuana office in the San Diego office in Tijuana. The mayor of Tijuana, who we obviously wanted there to open it, was not in town that day, so it'll be within a few days after. We haven't pinned down his schedule yet. So the mayor of Tijuana and I will be there together to open up our office, which is in the what they call the DATOC building, or the equivalent of the Economic Development Corporation in downtown Tijuana. And we will start that with I'll say minimal staffing at first, and then ramp it up as we are able to do that. I'm sorry? Oh, 9:30 to noon. Thank you. On Saturday. I'm sorry? We'll start off in the lobby and see what, there was some construction going on there. We may have to be in the breezeway at first, but we'll set up some way for people to feel comfortable about coming in, sitting down, and just talking. So I'm open to anything you want to talk about. I've been in office, 6-7 weeks, and we haven't had our 100-day report yet, but that's coming. We'll do that. You must be Scott Lewis.
Yeah. Is the marijuana, I have to leave early, so apologize for that. Is the marijuana ordinance you're putting forward the one the council adopted before, or the one that was proposed with the task force?
I'm not sure it's either. We're re-looking at all that from the new eyes, which is me. And so I don't know all the compromises and stuff that went into that. I was going to start off with the task force report, which was modified by the council. There are ways that I think it was too restrictive, maybe ways it was less restrictive. I just got to do that. We set up a process that we got to do this much faster than I initially thought. We hope within 30 days. Because of the, I'll say, the unintended consequences of stopping the prosecutions. I mean, everybody has legal, there were some there were a dozen cases that are still being prosecuted. They're basically on hold, although they have not been dismissed. There are people thinking of opening up that we really didn't want to have happen until we have an ordinance. So we want to keep things at the status quo, but I want to do that as quickly, have as minimal time of status quo as we can, and get an ordinance which not only allows dispensaries to locate legally, at least by city and state law in San Diego, and but protects neighborhood concerns about children and recreational access and for-profit use of dispensaries. We'll try to find a balance between compassionate use on the one hand and, the unhealthy aspects on the other hand.
You said there were unintended consequences of stopping the prosecution. Can you
Well, that is, for example, there were 12 cases that were ongoing. And so, and then what happens to those who want to reopen? I mean, we haven't set any rules yet, although I stopped the prosecution of the ones that are, so some people who want to open will think, oh, they can open because I'm not going to prosecute, kind of thing, right? So those are, there is a period of time before we have the ordinance that we've got to just say, hey, it's the old status quo. I mean, we're not going to prosecute per se, but we're not going to allow openings either until, and the whole thing about the 12 cases that I would have liked to have just have dismissed, the attorneys in the cases on the plaintiff side wanted legal fees, and the council, I think, was very resistant to that. So we can't dismiss them per se until those settlement talks proceed, but we can. So they're still on hold, basically. I mean, they're still on the table.
Will they be handled any differently than they would have?
Yeah, I don't think there's any active or aggressive pursuance of those cases at this moment. We're just trying. I would like them to be settled. I mean, we talked to the attorneys on the other side, basically, by the way, to say, hey, take your victory and run. Don't demand legal fees, but they had other legal concerns, so the council did not want to dismiss those cases. I forget what with or without prejudice means, but dismiss those cases and paying legal fees at the same time.
Is there a concern that the 100 cases that have already gone through, that they may turn around and sue the city?
Right, there was Craig, there was a worry about that too, that if we somehow dismiss them, whichever, in a legal way, would open us up to open up the other 100 cases. Or so, Kelly, that's what I meant by unintended consequences. If I said stop it, but that has legal consequences on the other. So, yeah, so we don't want to dismiss it for that reason also.
Well, it appears in hindsight that you acted too rashly.
Well, you gotta, if you're gonna make change, you gotta do it somewhere. At the meeting, in fact, where I talked about this, I had not intended, in fact, I was gonna wait for a new ordinance so I wouldn't get into these issues. And the city attorney sort of invited me with a letter. Somehow he sent it to you guys before he sent it to me, but a letter saying that, I could just stop prosecution if you asked me to. So I did. No, it's a question. I mean, I just wanted to take that opportunity that he said. I was trying to move, and I would say in a more measured way by having the ordinance ready, but the issue was forced by saying, "Hey, just stop the." It was different information that, frankly, I had earlier. That somehow I just couldn't do that as a mayor, and he said, "Oh, you can do that."
Or do you intend to meet with the U.S. attorney to talk
Yeah,
about
I have
it?
not met with her. I briefly talked when I was in Washington a few weeks ago with her boss, the Attorney General, and said I need to talk to him more extensively about this and their policy and their intentions. So I will talk to her, but she seems pretty set in what she wants to do, and I think the policy, I never understood the Obama administration policy in this regard, and I think it's different in different states, it looks to me, that the U.S. attorneys are being far more aggressive than in other states, and I just didn't understand that, and he could basically restrain that, and I'm going to meet with him soon to try to get that done. We've also, I introduced when I was in Congress, and I assume it's going to be introduced again, legislation that would basically say to the 15 or 16 states that are like California in terms of the legalization for medical marijuana, that the U.S. U.S. government treats those states differently. And we had legislation that did not go very far, but so we're working along, different paths. I think the quickest path is to get the Attorney General to say, given the situation in California, given the attempts in San Diego to have strictly regulated but legal dispensaries, that we ought to, pull back on our that kind of enforcement.
So just to clarify, you met with Eric Holder, or you
I
met with
I
somebody
met
down there?
him and talked to him briefly. We've known each other for a long time, and we agreed to meet in a more formal basis in the weeks ahead.
And to talk about this issue?
Oh yeah, I mean that was the.
Thank you.
He was at the U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting that I talked to him at. I knew more cabinet members than other mayors, but. Katie?
Mr. Mayor, so tell me a little bit specifically, what are your goals for this Tijuana office? What do you hope to accomplish by having this office down there?
Well, I mean, on I'll say a symbolic level, they have had an office here. it's sort of mutually respectful to have an office there. I mean, to say, hey, this is a mutually beneficial and a two-way relationship that has to be furthered by both. But beyond that, I mean, it has real value in terms of every day. There's things every day. I mean, in your own work, if you talk to someone every day, you keep up with things, like the mayor's office, and you know exactly what's happening, and whether it's questions about business investment, about trade, about cultural exchanges, about just little things. I mean, little questions come up, as you know, in any relationship a long time. I mean, you guys have a fire truck that is surplus. Can we get it? I mean, it's just a quick way to be able to talk and further that relationship. And although I thought we could do it technically by now, we haven't pulled it off yet. But the Mayor Bustamante and I are going to have phones on our desk that we pick up and talk to each other. He calls it a bat phone. I call it a hotline. But I thought we would have it set up by now, which we haven't.
Do you have any specific, by this time next year, you want border wait times to be 20 minutes shorter or anything like that?
Well, we will have that. We don't have it right now in that kind of way. Although, again, the border wait times are federal issues. I will tell you, both mayors believe that our national capitals are not as familiar with the border as they ought to be, and we have agreed. And although we haven't set the dates yet, he and I are going to go together to both Mexico City and to D.C. to talk to our presidents about fixing that. I mean, we know how it's fixed. I met with the Homeland Security Department last week in Washington. They know how I feel, and they know what suggestions I have, and they said they would be looking at them. They're thinking of their context is the improvement of San Isidro right now. Where it's an upgrade, and we've gone from 24 gates, for example, to 40 something, just by double what do they call it? Double boothing them. There's some other word. Anybody remember the word? Double stacking. But they have two booths in one lane, so you can handle, and it's about a 50% increase in speed. But and we're going to go up to 60 to over 60 gates when they finish the completion, and that in itself, they think, I'm not convinced, but they think the efficiency will be so much better with basically almost 3 times as many gates that I should be more patient. I think it's more of a policy than a infrastructure thing, but and so we'll try to, as they're improving their infrastructure, I'm going to try to work with others on the policy.
Following up on that, Mayor Filner.
I'm sorry?
Following up on that, do you see the Tijuana-San Diego area as a region unto itself, and are you going to be treating this area in that way, or is it just sort of good manners, like you said
Oh
earlier?
no, our business people and others have been calling it a mega region, where the Baja and San Diego and Imperial counties are a region that we should be marketing and looking at and selling together. Certainly, the environmental issues are similar and could be better off. So I think we have to work regionally, as there's an expression, dos ciudades pero una región, 2 cities but 1 region, and we don't really act in that way. And so I want to do that more, although, and as you said, unto itself, the only caveat I have there is that I would like, and what the mega region people are doing is marketing us as a region to the outside world also. That is, if you're coming to San Diego, you're also coming to Tijuana and vice versa. And it's a way to sell both business investment and tourism. For example, I think, and I've talked to the Homeland Security Secretary about this. If you're coming, we have this new daily stops for Japan, and we have some other international flights coming in here. Why not have that TSA inspection serve as also the inspection to going south. That is a separate lane for international tourists and business people. So when they're coming to either region, they're really coming to both cities and don't have to wait at the border. So I want to see it as a region far more than we've seen it before, but I want to market it not unto itself, but to. I just was speaking, in fact, just before I walked in here to the Canadian consul, and they want to be more formally involved because it's good for them to be involved in that North American kind of region, as it were. Because if they're coming to San Diego, we're trying to get their business here. They don't know that much about Tijuana, and yet by the trade law and by they are partners with us, and we have a region here that we can talk about. And there's the newest tagline now. I don't know which paper had the story, but Mexico is the new China. That is, they're coming back from China because of the costs of now, are not as they're favorable now to Mexico in terms of manufacturing. So we can talk about coming more to San Diego and Tijuana. Liam, as much as I've been trying to avoid you, yes.
Can you give us the latest on the La Jolla Cove stink and what agencies you're speaking with about that?
Did you bring it here?
No.
I mean, I just think it's intolerable that exists, number one. Number two, we are working, the councilwoman is very involved in this from La Jolla, Ms. Leitner, working with the state agencies involved. They are trying to restrain me from going up and hosing everything down. I'm going to give the system a little time to work before I do it. I don't understand the problem. When it rains, the poop goes into the water, right? So it seems to be biodegradable and all that. I just don't understand why you would subject a neighborhood and neighborhoods to that kind of stench, which, you can, in the restaurants or whatever, just walking by, when we can take care of it. A weekly or monthly hosing down of that area should be it, but I'm giving the bureaucratic process a little time to work before me and you go up and do it.
What's the bureaucratic process right now? Like what is happening?
The staff is telling me there's certain regional air quality regulations in certain state that we gotta get permits for, and so we're trying to work through that. I don't know all the details, but they're telling me that you gotta do all this. I'm a little bit, what shall I say, impatient about that. It just doesn't seem to be that big an issue that we should just take care of. The people there do not deserve to live in that situation.
Following up on that, could you say something
Are
about?
you gonna go with me too?
Sorry, but
If Liam provides the hose, I'm there.
all sorts of conflagrations in La Jolla, and one of them is the children's pool with the seals there, and you've been involved. And I'm just wondering, can you explain a little bit about a camera went up this past week on top of the old lifeguard tower that's supposed to be torn down in June. Can you explain a little bit about the relationship between the Juan Conservancy, who is funding this camera, and the city, and how that came to be, and what the purpose of that camera would be?
You're getting to the really deep issues here. As you know, the council and the city have come, I guess, compromise on dealing with the seals and the people. And the seals, there's a rope up there during the pupping season to try to make sure that, people don't interfere with the birth of seals. And I think it's a great tourist thing. I've seen pictures of, all kinds of people watching this thing. And I don't know if it was Miss Juan or someone came up, you know what the panda cam is, right? That you can, some of these zoos have cameras all day on the pandas, and anybody can tune in and watch them. So we're going to have a seal cam. You don't look all convinced that this is a wonderful thing. That is, why not watch the seals? They're there. I want to see a birth of a seal. And so, what is funny, Liam?
No, it's funny. I guess I want to see a birth of the seal too.
I know. I
don't
think it
hear-
would be
I
incredible.
don't hear mayors saying that very
But
often.
it'd be incredible. It'd be incredible to have a seal cam. So we put the camera in with the help of some of the people, and we want to, I thought we had it set up to show it on Channel 24 when we're going to have it
It's already
broadcast.
live on their website now.
I'm sorry?
It's already live on the one.
On the website. I know, right, but I want to
everyone-
get it onto Channel 24. I turn on Channel 24 and I see nothing. So,
It would be soothing.
better than the council meetings, that's for sure.
So,
You may turn off the council meeting and move to a seal, birth of a pup.
so is the relationship just one of, will the Conservancy be paying, a minor fee back to the city or
Yeah, but I don't.
to have the camera?
I don't know what the fee is. They put it up there and they're giving it to us. I don't understand if there's any money involved here, but tell me what the money is.
The city thought, this was a good idea and just said, come and put the camera up. I'm just wondering, because how long would it be there? Because the lifeguard tower is supposed to be torn down in
Well,
June.
then it'll go down with the tower, I guess. I don't know that. I just thought we've protected the seals during the pupping season. Why not have the camera there for the glory of our population and our tourists? And it's just, it's no big deal. You just put the camera there. It's showing 24 hours or on their website, but we could put it on Channel 24 during the 18 and a half hours that there's nothing there, and let our citizens watch it. I think it'd be a great thing. So I didn't know. I don't think there's any money involved. They offered us the camera. We had to get permission to put it up in the lifeguard tower, and as long as the tower's there, we'll use it. If it goes down
The city have to get permission
from ourselves. No, we had there was
Was it, did you have to go to the coastal commission or?
no, which is. Yeah, I gave myself the permission, but, we had to get an official right of entry permit.
Correct.
But who had to get that permit? The people who put in the camera?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, the city gave a permit to the WAN group to put up the camera. And as long, we're not gonna leave, if the tower has to come down, it's not gonna stay there because the camera's there. We'll find another place for the camera.
Before the pupping season, like you said. so
Right
we
now,
can
yeah.
watch the birds.
Although, if it goes viral, we'll figure out how to do a seal cam and then a Liam cam and we should have a camera on Liam that would, 24 hours a day, fact check them.
I wanted to hear your reaction to the Coastal Commission's lawsuit against the Navy on the Broadway complex this week, and also the judge's tentative ruling on Closet Panama that's going to be heard on Friday.
Well, my past statements on both are clear. I don't think the Broadway complex project is a good one. I think it's bad on about 18 different levels. So, and I've introduced with Susan Davis similar legislation in the Congress when I was there to have a more up-to-date EIR. So I think the Coastal Commission's ruling or request or whatever it was is appropriate. I think it's greatly out of date, the EIR, and the Navy should not be allowed to proceed until it's updated. You want to go on that one before the
Now
other?
that you're mayor, is there something else you can do from your side to change it or stop it?
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. I hope so. But as I said during the campaign, we should not be running the city according to the financial needs of the publisher of a certain newspaper, which I think you represent. That is, the suggestions that Mr. Manchester and others have made is to keep it going, I think are just wrong-headed, and we should not be, the city policy should not be governed by his needs.
Okay, what about the
Maybe
closet-
the Navy is another story.
What about the Closet of Panama?
Well, as you know, I said on numerous occasions that I thought it was not a good project. I also said that if the city council passed it and the court approved of it, I would carry it out. I think it looks like it was a pretty clear ruling, or at least tentative ruling on that. I think I don't know. It will be held up on Friday, which I think. It looks to me, as just a layman, I don't know what everybody else, nobody else I've seen I've really talked to about it, but the the construction schedule was so tight in terms of meeting the centennial demand that I'm not sure if it's held up for any part of time. It can happen before our centennial celebration, which
Following
may
up on
make
that,
it moot. I don't know.
is there any, I'm sorry, is there any work to try and come to an agreement with Soho versus like appealing the process?
I think, by the way, after the court hearing on Friday, and we'll see, I mean, each side will have to figure out how. But you know, there were mediation talks going on beforehand, Soho and Dr. Jacobs, which I had heard were going well until, you know, it came to a head at the council meeting, and so those obviously efforts stopped. I would like to see those efforts restarted. I don't know where everybody will be after the hearing. If one side may say I'm going to win, so I'm not going to mediate. The other side may say I give up. I don't know. I would like to see the mediation. From what I heard, and I was not there, but what I heard, they were making progress. And there was a mediator who was doing it pro bono, and he indicates that they made progress, and he has offered to continue that after the hearing. So I would hope that would happen.
In the past, Dr. Jacobs basically said, my project I'm funding and has not really promised to fund anything else. So if that is not to be the case, what do you think the city's fallback position on doing something different would be as far as paying for the cost of any changes in the deposit?
Well, I mean, his plan was was the aim primarily of ridding the central Mesa of cars. As I've said on other occasions, I could do that with 6 traffic cones if I wanted to. That is, if that was the sole aim. And in fact, I was the councilman for Balboa Park, which wrote at the time when we wrote the Balboa Park master plan, which said how to do this. And I think we should go back to that, which is if none of these efforts result in any mediation settlement or whatever, that you put the parking outside of Balboa Park. If not, and you can put a garage at Inspiration Point and have people come in on a tram system, which is really part of the park experience. And they're going to have to do that, by the way. That's how they were going to do it during the construction schedule. That is, when they had closed off the Central Mesa for construction, they were going to have a tram system coming in from the outside. And I thought, why? Well, that's going to show that it works. But as you know, in Disneyland, other place where you have a tram system, it becomes part of the experience. I mean, you have people talking about Balboa Park, the history of it, as they're coming into the park, or as they're being dropped off at different places. So you can make that tram system a real effective part of the experience. I went back, by the way, when we were discussing this on the council to look at the transcripts. I was fact-checking what I said. And there was a problem. Someone said, well, how are we going to pay for the tram system? And someone had this brilliant idea or McDonald's, I think, offered that and we said we would accept advertising on the tram, I think. McDonald's decided, no, they wanted to put a Golden Arches thing inside the park, and they would pay for the tram system. So I effectively demolished the thing with this little speech on what did we want now? Burger King Lear at the Old Globe and the International House of Pancakes in the central part, and I went on and on. It was fun, and they did not consider that further. But I heard, by the way, it was raised. I was at a Balboa Park Centennial meeting. Someone came up with, they had just seen the Farmers PGA on the TV. Why not have some named thing for Balboa Park Centennial, like Tostitas, Balboa Park Centennial. And I thought that was not the way to treat Balboa Park.
But, I mean, so the bottom line, I guess, for you is if the rule is upheld, are you going to order 6 orange cones in your positive Panama tomorrow, and that's the end of it, or?
No, well, first, we obviously, the city and the city council have to determine what they're going to do in whatever the situation is. I will, I am in the closed session. I will make my views known, so I don't know what the city attorney or the council will want to do there. And then see if the parties are amenable to mediation, and then see how that all plays out. I mean, you can imagine certain scenarios. I mean, that whatever takes place is going to take time. And Mr. Jacobs may say, hey, this is going to take too much time. I'm dropping it anyway. Or, yeah, I mean, I don't know that will happen. I'm just saying that's a potential. Or if the judge changes his mind between, the tentative ruling and Friday and Soho says we've lost it, do they continue to appeal? Do they? I don't know. So I have to await, as in several cases that are before us, court situations. Of course, by the way, I know it's on everybody's mind, that if there is a real delay in the construction schedule, that I think will happen, then Earth Day can get a permit in the park. I know you were waiting for that one.
A month ago, you said you were talking to the governor, you plan to talk to the governor about Prop A and Senate Bill 829. How's that?
We're just make sure everybody. The issue, of course, is that when the voters voted on Prop A, which banned, I guess it banned PLAs, project labor agreements, on public projects that the city did. The voters did that with the knowledge, or at least with the fact that the state legislature had already passed legislation which said that certain funds that the state gives would be not be given to cities with bans of project labor agreements. So the first estimates of that were that it might cost us between $150 and $200 million a year on various projects. I mean, it was mainly in the area of water and sewage projects, and mainly what they call revolving loan program. But it gives the city a chance for really low interest capital funds to do major projects. So it would have been a real blow to us. And I've been talking to the governor's staff and to interested parties, let us say, especially in labor, that think we can come to some, what shall I say, pragmatic compromise that would allow us to continue getting the funds, even in this situation. So that has not been finalized, though.
Because the state water board said that they would stop processing the city's state revolving fund loans at the end of 2012. Do you know that?
Yeah, I don't know that is, I don't know what the regional board has to do with this, for
Or,
example.
I'm sorry, it's the state level.
Yeah. They have not approved any, but they have not turned any down. We're in this negotiation stage. That is, there is state law, but we're asking them to interpret it in a way that will not hurt San Diego. But those have not been finalized in any way. But there has been no denial or approval of, there have been some approvals actually, but there's no been denial of anybody. Everything is being held till we finish our negotiation. I mean, I would hope soon, but I just can't predict. Get somebody else.
When you look back at your when you look back at your first 6 or 7 weeks,
Historical.
yeah, it's historical first 6 or 7 weeks. What do you think? What surprised you about the way procedures work? There's been a dust up or two. What do you think of how things have gone the first 6 or 7 weeks?
Well, on one hand, I mean, as I said when I was elected, it was a very humbling and it's an awesome task to be the chief executive of the 8th biggest city in the country. I mean, and what I found, it is very big. It's a very big city, and you have 10,000 employees working, and the processes that any big organization have tend to go on regardless of who the CEO is, right? I mean, you're not starting anew. And my biggest issue or problem has been, or challenge has been, to figure out how to impose, as it were, a new set of policies or a new direction on certain things while the city continues to, while the city continues to operate. I mean, just as an example, we give out dozens or even hundreds of contracts per week. I have no assurance from seeing that process that we are really accomplishing the goals that we have for equal opportunity in terms of small business, in terms of women and minority-owned businesses. I'm not sure that we're accomplishing those aims, and yet the pencils have to be bought, the toilet paper has to be bought. You know, how do you stop things to make sure that they're going in relation to new policy while still keeping the city forward? That's been a challenge. Same with hiring, same with press calls. That is, people were used to a certain way. So I open up the newspaper, and somebody is saying about a policy that I have, one, I never approved of, and two, it's against what I wanted the direction to go, and yet staff is answering the questions as if they were, you know. So how do you get a handle on that, but still, whether it's contracting, hiring, or press recalls, get a handle on what people are doing and try to change the policy while at the same time keeping business going. That's been the biggest challenge. And we may have erred one way or the other in certain cases. I know some of you have been frustrated, for example, when I saw some of those articles on the press or came out, and I said, why are they talking without having a policy? So on the one hand, you can say, nobody talks. And, but that obviously causes just, day-to-day problems. I mean, most of the questions you all have on about the city are sort of nuts and bolts stuff, what's going on in the park, what's going on, and not really political or policy issues. So I have to find, like I do in hiring, like I do in contracting, a balance between trying to change the direction and make sure everybody's going by the same policy while still letting the normal course of business occur. And we make errors on one side or the other as we're doing that, but I think that will be straightened out, as it were, within a time period, whether it's 60 days or 90 days. We will have processes which allow me to put my stamp on policy on these things while still allowing a big bureaucracy to keep functioning.
Is it true that, I've been told that all requests, purchase orders, contract payments, all have to have your signature, and then even down to the level where Park and Rec department, like if somebody wants to use a soccer field.
That's a little exaggerated, Craig. As I said, whether it's contracting or hiring or press calls, I said, let's stop them. How do you stop them? By saying I have to approve them. And obviously that you can't do that in such a 100% fashion that, as I said, stop business. So we have all kinds of caveats and exceptions and delegations of authority. For example, ministerial permits that don't, can be signed by the department head, just as an example. Travel by public safety does not have to be approved by me. So, as I said, we're trying to figure that out. How do you put a stamp or change the direction? You're literally changing the direction of a big bureaucracy while it's moving. And that's not easy. And as I said, we may err. And I think we erred, in too strict a policy in some of that regard, which we have changed. And also, some of the questions that the press has to certain departments on nuts and bolts stuff. We just, in trying to stop the train, what's the metaphor I want? It's got to keep moving. But how do you change the orientation or the direction it's going while it's moving? That's not easy. That's been, asked me what the biggest challenge was, and that's it. And we're going to make mistakes. And I just have to hear from, say, the department heads have made it clear that there are certain kinds of contracts that it's just screwing up if I need to approve. You have made clear, or the press has made clear, certain kinds of questions. It's stupid for me to say it's got to go through me. So we're trying to come to grips with all that, but it'll work itself out within in a short period of time, I'm sure.
So Jerry Sanders had a policy that all press questions had to go through his office first, even if it was for another department. Are you maintaining that policy?
Well, it's being maintained at this moment, except we're trying to say, hey, there are certain nuts and bolts. And I'll use the word I use for permit, ministerial, or just factual issues that have no relationship. They're just information that you're entitled to. And we should be able to give that out quickly and responsibly without having to go through tons of approvals. So we just have to find a way to balance that out between those kind of questions and questions that are really policy and political issues, which I saw people making statements on that I thought were not reflective of the policy I wanted. So that will not be the final policy of that Sanders had. I mean, we will be much more relaxed on that. We've relaxed it. For example, we don't have to have mayor's staff in meetings that the council people are having, or that he wanted that. I think they have too many public information officers, because of that policy. So it'll be changed, but I couldn't do it overnight. I didn't even understand it until each day a new set of challenges comes up, and then you try to. And then, as I said, you err one way or the other until you figure out a balance. Just you got to give me a little time. It's only been 6 or 7 weeks. I think it'll straighten out within within a month, but at the max. But we're trying to change the direction to change it. Train while it's moving. Should I use that one? Fact check that.
So how's the relationship going with the council?
We haven't had enough time, I think, to give a final answer on that. I mean, I am used to working, with council people and with boards in a nonpartisan way. I've never had to deal in the way of a strong mayor versus council. I have met with every single one of them on at least, I had a one meeting where I asked certain questions about their interest in boards and commissions and stuff, and I think each one we've met with on a variety of issues since. So I'm trying to establish a good relation. We've only had really one on the appointments issue. I vetoed one set of appointments because I thought that both the policy of the context of making the appointments and the lack of the policy made for poor decisions. And the council will, I think, we will start doing that right. We're going to have as soon as we're going to have very shortly a what do we call it, a round table, or maybe we'll do it through a council meeting on port policy and our vision for the port, and then that will lead to then qualifications for court commissioners, which will then lead to our ability to appoint port commissioners. So let's have the policy first, and then the appointments. So I mean, it's in process. I obviously have good relationships with most of them because I've known them all for some time. Others are newer, and others, there's the partisan split. People have to get used to working within that or with that. I'm not sure. Do you want anything more than that?
I have a follow-up to that, Mr. Mayor. I've heard from some people that actually this past 6 weeks has been more partisan at City Hall than it was under Jerry Sanders, his reign. And a lot of that is between you and the council president, Todd Gloria, which I think surprises people because you're both Democrats.
So how can it be partisan?
Right. Well, but they're saying that the different, moderate Democrats versus more liberal Democrats, there's a lot of clashing going on, and just that the general feeling at City Hall is more partisan than it had been.
Well, I'm not sure what. Give me some evidence of that. There have been no real partisan decisions or fight over them, particularly that I know of. The Port Commission was just the only one that I can even think about, so I'm not sure what the basis of that is. I'm trying to work with all the council people. As people have said, potholes don't have a party label, and I'd like to know. You said people have said. I don't know what evidence there is of that. We haven't done anything significant in terms of policy that has a partisan edge one way or the other. I'm not sure what they mean.
I think it relates to like micromanaging.
But that's not partisan. That's another issue. Which one?
Right.
Which one do you want to talk about?
Well, I think that was the criticism of you micromanaging.
Oh, well, as I said earlier, I get, how do you get a hold of a big train and change its direction? Or let's use an aircraft carrier. And change its direction while it's moving. It's very difficult. And if someone tells me I have to hire someone for this job and we got to keep the city going, and I say, why aren't you hiring someone from that's a women-owned business, yeah, maybe that's minority. I mean, maybe that's micromanaging. But I'm trying to get a sense of how the policy is being, what policy is being applied, and how you deal with it. I mean, for example, I'll ask questions on big contracts, and I'll say, "What is our EOC compliance?" Well, that's been put out to bid, and we don't have it. It's not subject to it. Then I'll say, "Okay, you have a $1,200 contract here. Why doesn't that go through EOC?" Oh, it's too small. So yeah, so Filner's asking about $1,200 contracts. Yeah, but that's where you can give opportunities to small business people who haven't had them, to women-owned businesses, to minority-owned businesses. So I'm asking questions to see what the process is. Once you have a process change, then you don't have to micromanage. But until you figure that out, and again, it's a moving train. People are giving out, you got to buy your pencils, and you got to buy, you got to sign this contract, and you got to keep that project going. So I'm trying to ask those questions while we have to do this. And I think it'll work itself out fairly briefly, but at the beginning, it's not easy.
I have to go, I'm sorry, so I'm gonna sort of
Okay.
mash together two unrelated questions. My first one is, developers are kind of looking at Barrio Logan, and residents there want to know if it's gonna be possible to let developers in, so to preserve Barrio Logan's really unique personality. My second question, which you don't have to answer, is my friends in Tijuana are asking me when you're gonna come down to a Cholos game. So there you go.
Well, on the second one, I invited the Cholos up, and in fact, we gave them the stadium Petco Park to practice on. So I met with the team, and they made me an honorary Cholo. I have a shirt, I could put it on for you. And I said, by the way, that's the one virtue of a regional approach to things. Since the Chargers were doing so bad, but we had a national champion with the Cholos, we can claim them as our champions. But the pride that both Tijuana and also, a significant part of our city population had in them is something that we should be celebrating. And so, and I actually was trying to get them to have a more international match and I was trying to get, I think, the national team of Spain here to play them. So we're still working on little things like that to try to highlight them in a way to further my broader aim, I would say, of the value of our cross-border relationship. So Cholos is a good example of a team that has a great, obviously great skill, but then people have pride and feel it's their team. And if we can feel that in San Diego, then it furthers our regional approach, So I'll get to a game.
Barrio Logan.
Well, the issue here is, can you have, or when will we have a community plan that will allow development that is in accord with community values? And we're trying to get that community plan done as quick as we can. And I have represented Barrio Logan for a long time, both on the city council and in Congress. I support the kind of plan that has been in draft form, and I hope we can get that passed soon. But that should be able to handle those conflicts. That's the purpose of the community plan.
To go back to the allegation of partisanship, I have a question from John Lamb. Did you
Well,
veto
that was-
the court commission vote because Marshall Merrifield is a Republican?
Who's Marshall No, I vetoed because these appointments I've always seen when I was on the council, and since their personality and popularity contests, they have nothing to do with policy, because we don't have a policy, and we don't have a set of accountable principles or policies to keep the board members accountable. So they're on their own. I can't see that we have 3 representatives, let them report back to the council on the policy objectives that we have, except we don't have any policy objectives, and we don't have any reporting requirement. So let's have them first. Then we can judge people's qualifications by that. It's not just a personality contest who can get the 5 votes. And I think the residents of District 4 that showed up saying you should wait till our representatives there, I think they had a point, and it would have changed the dynamic of the whole debate. And frankly, the process was I would say tainted. I never seen a process where, for example, there was a certain set of rules for one vote, a different set for another vote. And it was clear why those processes were put in effect. They had a preordained outcome that they set up the rules to produce. I don't think that was proper. That was a proper
But it could be
proper
many weeks before
procedure.
you fill those positions, so why don't you appoint some interim people and then replace them with permanent appointees?
I don't think there is. I mean, I hope we can get there reasonably quickly. There's not anything that's going on that we're not really represented there. The staff knows where I stand. The port, I mean, Irene McCormick, who was a vice president of the port, is on my staff. Lee Burdick, who was a former port commissioner, is on my staff. They are in constant touch with the port. We have our input. Our needs are not being, shall I say, neglected. And we'll figure this out in a short amount of time, matter of weeks, I hope.
Mayor, did you ever try to change the policy when you were on the city council?
I
Was that
think so.
something that bothered you then?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yes. I just didn't understand why we were doing the votes like we were doing. And in fact, I mean, I can't, I remember trying to do something about accountability and that kind of thing, but I was not successful at that time. We have time maybe for another question.
Question just following up on a small La Jolla issue. There's in relation to the replacement of the lifeguard tower, in conjunction with that, there's a community group that has also been working for a long time to replace the sidewalk there along the children's pool, which is too small and forcing people because of the crowds, maybe to see the seals, to go out into the street, and they're trying to get this project funded, and the city has said that they can use the same contractor, Stronghold Engineering, at the same time to do this work and benefit from economies of scale, although they're having a really hard time raising the $250,000 for the sidewalk improvement, and I think they're looking at coming back to the city and seeing if maybe there would be some funds, at least partial funds, to help with that. And
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not enough familiar with it, but I'll look into that. Sounds reasonable. Or we can sell time on the seal cam, and Voice of San Diego would like to sponsor it. I think be a named sponsor, and would pay heavily for the sidewalk. What the hell happened? The seat just disappeared.
That one didn't say voice.
just following up on that too, since you mentioned the seals again, are the permits on the way for the extension of the row? I know that was a community concern.
I don't know why it's a concern. One, I signed the new permit, and the Coastal Commission approved it. It's all. Yeah, it was never a question. I mean, it was just a ministerial thing because it was the length of the rope had been mismeasured, and so both the city and the Coastal Commission just adjusted the permit without any. It was a ministerial action on both sides. If you would, we have both both permits if you'd like to see them.
For the site development and coastal development, right?
Yeah. So if we can get them both permits. So both permits are in existence. But they. Yeah, they have. It was just a ministerial thing.
Are you supporting anybody in the District 4 race?
No.
No?
Not now.
You plan to?
I mean, maybe after the primary we'll look at it.
Other than the port, are there other boards that where you have this concern about being popularity contests and not having
All of
clearly
them. Although most of them do have, by the way, written out qualifications and standards, which the port does not. As Miss Emerald said the other day to me, that we ought to be more professional on this whole thing. There's got to be qualified people that should serve our interests on those boards. So yeah, and when we get to things like the convention center or the planning commission, I want to do the same thing. That is, have both a policy and a set of criteria that we can judge people by. And not just have all these, and what the popularity contest becomes clearly in the political context that we have is a rotating set of 20 people, who I will name for you. No, I mean a rotating set of 40, 50 people seem to be the only ones we have to serve on these commissions, and they rotate them around, and each one has the name of Cushman or something. I mean, again, I don't understand why we have such a limited we have so much a limited universe of people in a great city like us, and if you set out the, oh, you're writing that one down. So first notes he took for the whole press conference.
With the women of V-Day downtown, we're gonna have a huge event on Valentine's Day.
Is that
A
the
very large
Voices
protest.
Against Violence?
It's the women against,
Wi- Yeah.
it's women and men and everyone against violence against women and girls.
I will be there.
You'll be there.
That's
Right.
our last question, Mayor, we gotta go.
Thank you very much, guys. Every, once a month.